The U20 World Cup has officially begun, with us getting the reveal of the BLUELOCK Japan starting lineup for the game against Nigeria. One of the community's fan favorites, Mikage Ryo, has also earned himself a spot on this starting lineup as a right midfielder. But going into this game and reflecting on his task by Ego, what weapons has Ryo integrated into his new style to get him selected as a starter? Well, in today's video, I'll be going through my predictions for Ryo's master copy training and his new technique, and specifically what weapons he copied from each of the remaining BLUELOCK Japan members. It's almost time for the master copy to be revealed, so let's get our predictions in now. Before I get into the video though, I want to leave a spoiler warning for the latest chapter of the BLUELOCK manga, being chapter 312, and if you have not read it, I would suggest you click off this video now if you wish to not be spoiled. And also, join my Discord server, it's called the New Egoist Geeks, and the link to it is down below. Looking at the context for Ryo's master copy training, Ego tasked Ryo with learning to copy the special abilities and weapons of each of the BLUELOCK Japan members. Now, in theory, this sounds broken, but I'm not entirely sure how Ryo is supposed to do this. We see back in chapter 107 during the third selection that Isagi and Hiori deduced that Ryo is not able to copy any genetic factors that are exclusive to that player. Things like Chigiri's speed and Aryu's height just cannot be copied by Ryo's chameleon weapon. So it seems to me that the abilities of a genius are going to be impossible for him to copy or replicate in any capacity. I'm not sure if that description extends to the current series, since Ryo has made it a habit of copying geniuses' unique abilities throughout the story, but at this point I'm going to still assume that that description is accurate. Also, when looking at the results of his training, I do not believe that Ryo is going to copy any weapons from characters that he already has copies of. The specific word of remaining players could either be interpreted as the remaining of the 300 original players, or the remaining players on the team that he simply hasn't copied yet. Overall though, I won't be covering a prediction for a copy that exists from a character that Ryo has already copied a weapon from. If you need a refresher as to the techniques that Ryo has copied from other players that he currently has in his arsenal, Ryo has copied Rin's Trivela shot, Sai's cross elastico nutmeg, Yukimiya's gyro shot, Nagi's trapping, Aiku's serpent defense, Corona's dribbling, Shido's dragon drive, and Atoya's stealth walk. Now, there's also the possibility and theory that Ryo's Metavision is actually a copy, but I don't believe that it is. Sure, it does have a unique design to it like Isagi's, which based on his aura could be implied to be a copy, but I'm not sure that I would consider it to be one. So for the characters of the previously named techniques that, I just mentioned, I do not believe that Ryo will copy these characters again with a new technique to add to his arsenal. Meaning Ryo will not copy Rin's crash shoot because he already has copied Rin's Trivela shot. Getting into our main character though, what weapon is Ryo going to copy from Isagi? Well, I believe that Ryo will actually copy the twin gun volley. Looking at Isagi's weapons and abilities, what weapon could Ryo truly copy that he doesn't already have in his arsenal, or he couldn't just copy from another player? We already talked about Metavision. Isagi's off-the-ball movements aren't really anything special as opposed to someone like Atoya, and his direct shot really isn't anything insane. On the other hand, the twin gun volley is in itself special. Isagi created this technique by reflex when in flow after being pressed by both Rain and Kaiser, sparking the creation of this brand new goal scoring technique. And honestly, I believe that Ryo possesses the dexterity needed to replicate this ability. While Isagi did get inspired by Nagi's juggling shot from the Manshan City game, the twin gun volley doesn't actually involve Isagi controlling the ball, instead just whipping his foot around it before shooting. I think that out of any of Isagi's weapons, the twin gun volley is the best weapon that Ryo could copy from him, since it would increase his precision and power with direct shots, which could help correlate to other weapons. But now the next character to discuss that Ryo could copy a weapon from is Barou Shoei. Barou's weapons when it relates to copying are actually going to be the most difficult out of any BLUELOCKer on this list, mostly from the fact that Barou's qualities as a player embody the genius and restrictive ego type. Ryo is a freedom-based talented learner, so copying a unique weapon from a restrictive genius is going to be very difficult for him. He can't copy Barou's physique or core strength, and he especially cannot copy his Predator Eye weapon. By the way, if you want an in-depth breakdown as to why Ryo could not copy that weapon, go watch my Sendo Predator Eye prediction video, it explains it all there. However, one ability that I think that Ryo could steal from Barou and copy is actually the stealth kill shot. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could Ryo use the stealth kill shot without Predator Eye? Well, that's because Predator Eye isn't actually needed for the stealth kill shot to be used effectively. And I know this because we have proof of it. Back in the third selection in chapter 99, players from Team A and Team B crowded around the box, to which Rain used their bodies as bait to score a goal, using what almost mirrors the stealth kill shot. Using Isagi's words as a reference, Rain used Chigiri and Shiro's bodies as a wall to make a blind shot. That is almost exactly how the stealth kill shot is used in the series, and Rain didn't use Predator Eye when doing the blind shot, as it was called. Now, of course, Rain was eventually able to subconsciously awaken Predator Eye in the final NEO match against Bastion München. However, during that moment, he did not have Predator Eye and was just using his natural spatial awareness in its place. So assuming Ryo used his metavision in place of Predator Eye, while he wouldn't be as hyper-fixated on the keeper as Barou is, his shots can still have a relatively similar effectiveness in their usage. He can simply bait the individuals to crowd the box, using his metavision to take in the understanding of the positioning and movements of everyone before timing his shot. Even in the second selection, we know how spatial awareness works, allowing the user to sense what the other player can see. So going into this moment with Ryo here, why couldn't he just use his metavision in place of Predator Eye to help create this modified stealth kill shot? Out of any possible weapon from Barou to be copied, I think that the stealth kill shot is the best possible one for him to choose. However, I'm just thinking on it now, but Ryo could also copy the chop dribble technique. The chop dribble in itself isn't a technique exclusive to anyone, it just works best with Barou due to his kingly ideology and desire to devour those in power. So reflecting on it now, the chop dribble may actually be the best weapon for Ryo to steal. So honestly, he could take either or. Next up on our list though is Meguru Bachira. Like Barou, Bachira is also a genius, so his elastic dribbling is going to be something that's difficult for Ryo to copy. However, there is one element from Bachira's arsenal that I do believe that Ryo could steal from him. That element being Jenga. When it relates to Jenga, Bachira learned to incorporate this ability into his elastic dribbling to turn his style into a reactive and counter dribbling technique as opposed to an active one. Now, why do I believe that Ryo could copy this technique or this application of a technique? Well, it's because he already has. Looking at how Bachira describes his new style, he draws his opponent into his future, forcing them to act first, then he reacts and flies past them with a trick break. This has turned Bachira's dribbling style into a counter dribbling style, almost exactly like Sai Itoshi's. Sai's dribbling was determined to be a counter dribbling style by Rain himself, using almost the same descriptive wording as Bachira uses for himself. And with his new Egoist League training, Ryo learned to copy elements of Sai Itoshi's dribbling style and short form passing. Meaning if Ryo were to incorporate Jenga, it would just improve his already existing dribbling style. Considering both Sai and Bachira learned to hone their dribbling in Spain, it wouldn't surprise me if Ryo learned Jenga to improve his own dribbling technique. But going into the next character on our list, how is Ryo going to be able to copy my GOAT and favorite character in the series, Chigiri Hyoma? Like Barou, Chigiri is one of the hardest characters for Ryo to copy a weapon from, since his entire playstyle is formulated on his genetic weapon, being his speed. Chigiri is, by exact definition, a speed merchant. His entire style and weapons are hinged on his ability to run fast, with his first NEL stats giving him an S rank in 3 categories, being speed, offense, and dribbling. So when it comes to weapons that Ryo could steal from Chigiri and copy, not a lot of them work best for Ryo because you need that speed to make them viable. However, there is one weapon that I think would work from Chigiri's arsenal that Ryo could copy, that being the 44 Red Panther Sniper. The 44 Panther Sniper is technically the only weapon in Chigiri's arsenal that is not dictated by his speed, and rather relies on his speed to get him into the zone in which the ability is actually possible. When you look at how the 44 Panther Snipe actually works, it's technically just Chigiri using his body's natural crossing technique to send a pass into the top corner of the net, with his perfect zone to do so being 19 meters from the goal at 44 degrees to the left. That's the reality of this technique, it's just a bullet pass in one specific zone to the top corner of the net. And in relation to sending passes, especially bullet passes, Ryo is actually one of the best in the series. Using his metavision, he'll be able to easily sense where he needs to stand and the conditions needed to replicate Chigiri's 44 Panther Snipe. Other than that weapon though, I'm not entirely sure what Ryo could steal from Chigiri to incorporate into his arsenal, so I think the 44 Panther Snipe is just our best prediction. Now the next guy to talk about is Rensuke Kunigami, and for this guy it may actually be easier than you may think. Now your go-to may be to say that Ryo will learn ambidexterity from Kunigami, and honestly, I don't think that's going to be the case. Rather, I think that Ryo is going to learn from Kunigami in the first selection before the wildcard even took place, copying his knuckleball used in the Team V game. The wildcard helped improve his physique and power shots, but that's about it. It didn't really give him any new weapons aside from being ambidextrous. And while I do believe that Ryo will become ambidextrous from copying a player, that player will unfortunately not be Kunigami. But again, Kunigami's arsenal is fairly basic when it comes to the grand scope of Blue Lock arsenals. However, the one weapon that Kunigami has that no other character has is the mid-range knuckleball that he used in the first selection. Not only has Ryo seen this weapon up close and personal since Kunigami first used and awakened this ability in the game against Ryo, but I also think it makes sense narratively that Ryo would copy this technique. While we do see a lot of power shots and curve shots in this series, the only knuckleballs that we have seen within the Blue Lock universe are Kunigami's and Chris Prince's. Giving Ryo the added ability of the knuckleball allows for Ryo's arsenal to be expanded even more in the ways that he can strike the ball, making him even deadlier. Now there really isn't an alternative weapon that I could see Ryo taking from Kunigami that could be used to the same effectiveness that Kunigami has because of his physique. So I would just say that the knuckleball is probably the best weapon that Ryo could copy from Kunigami. But next up, we have a character that you guys know that I do not like very much, that being Karasu Tabito. Now, in a situation similar to Isagi, Karasu is also a talented learner with very similar weapons to Isagi, so what exactly could Ryo steal from him? Well, I believe that Ryo would steal his assassin-style ball keeping. What makes Karasu unique in relation to his ball keeping technique is his ability in using his hands to maintain distance between himself and others. This can either be done offensively like in the episode Nagi manga against Nagi himself, or when baiting players to him defensively, like against Isagi, Shido, and Nanase in the main story. I think with Ryo's incredible control over the ball that he already possesses, along with a way to maintain possession and control distance and positioning, Karasu's assassin style is the best for him to steal. And besides, there's not a lot of weapons in Karasu's arsenal that Ryo could steal from him anyways. The only new weapon that Karasu has even added into his arsenal since his introduction was Metavision in chapter 286. Other than that, the only changes that he's made are subverting the decision of scoring using his pressing to holding off and baiting defenders towards him as a defensive midfielder. But when it relates to weapons, Karasu has been really stagnant since his introduction, so copying his assassin style seems to be the only possible answer for Ryo. Before I get into the rest of the video though, I want to remind you guys that if you are enjoying this video so far, to leave me a like and subscribe down below to see more awesome Blue Lock content just like this. It costs you guys absolutely nothing and it helps me out immensely. We're less than 1,000 subs away from 20k, so please help me get there. And if you want to help me even more, if you were to become a member of the channel, you'd earn some awesome benefits like personal video requests and shoutouts in videos, but you would also get your name mentioned in the Blue Lock New World movie as a contributor to the project, and this also applies to leaving super chats. So like, subscribe, and become a member today to show your support for me and my content. Remember, we're on the road to 20k, so help me get there. Now for our next character and next weapon, we're actually going to be talking about two because these weapons and these characters are kinda linked together. These two characters being Gin Gagamaru and Aryu Jubei. Now the reason I lump these two characters together is because their weapons are actually very closely linked when it relates to Ryo copying them. It's also for the fact that their weapons are incredibly difficult for Ryo to copy. Gagamaru's core abilities rely on his incredibly reflexive ability, allowing for him to make plays and saves using his body to its utmost limit. Aryu uses his naturally large frame and limbs to allow for his defensive range to be huge, covering most of the airspace and excelling in duels involving interceptive plays. But the main issue that arises is the position for Gagamaru and Aryu's genetic talent. Gagamaru's abilities and talents mostly extend to being a keeper, so Ryo copying a technique from him won't necessarily be the most useful. And Aryu's naturally large limbs and jumping power are skills that Ryo will never be able to hope to copy, since they are the traits of a genius. However, there is one technique that combines both Gagamaru and Aryu's abilities into one, that way he could copy technically both characters at the same time. That being Gagamaru's Scorpion Trap in the third selection. Gagamaru was able to use his incredible reflexes to intercept a pass to Shido from Igaguri. Now while Ryo can't exactly copy Gagamaru's reflexes or Aryu's height, there are elements of this weapon and this technique that Ryo can copy. We've seen Ryo jump at heights comparable to Aiku, and with specific training in using his legs or even headers when it relates to saves, Ryo should be able to combine both elements of Gagamaru's and Aryu's styles into one. These two characters were probably the most difficult to concoct an idea as to how Ryo would copy the weapons of both of them, like together or individually, so I don't know, this one's kind of 50-50 on whether or not it's going to be like accurate or not. Next up though, we have the scrawny defender of BLUELOCK, but still a fan favorite, Iki Nico. Like other talented learners, Nico's abilities are very similar to existing skills that either Isagi, Karasu, or Ryo already possess. That makes it kind of difficult for Ryo to copy a technique or weapon from Nico because all the weapons in Nico's arsenal kind of already extend over to Ryo's. The only technique that I can envision Ryo stealing from Nico is the stop and press defensive play that Nico used to stop Sendo in the U20 game. In this play, Nico analyzed the style of pass sent by Sai and positioned himself to fake Sendo out to then play him and intercept the ball, sending it upfield. Looking at what Ryo is capable of when it relates to his analysis and copying abilities, I think that this technique is fairly easy for him to replicate. Nico, in my opinion, is on the lower end of analytical talent when it relates to those with spatial awareness and even metavision users, so I feel like under any circumstance of defense where Nico can send something, Ryo could as well. So out of any weapon or technique or play that Nico has done, I think that the stop and press defensive press is the best weapon for Ryo to steal from Nico to incorporate into his own arsenal. Because aside from that, what does Nico have that Ryo already doesn't? Next up, we have a character that usually gets paired up with Ryo in relation to debates about best midfielder on the BLUELOCK team. Let's talk about Hiori. Now, the weapons that Ryo could steal from Hiori are fairly limited because, again, there's a lot of overlap when it relates to their arsenals. Both have their own dribbling style, and both are incredible passers. And with Hiori's passes being comparable to Sai Itoshi and Ryo training to copy the passes of Sai Itoshi, it's a kind of hard decision to make about what weapon could Ryo steal from Hiori that Ryo doesn't already have. However, there is one technique that I'm partial to that I think Ryo will copy from Hiori, that being the alley cross used in the PXG game. During that match, Hiori was triple pressed by Karasu, Zantetsu, and Nanase, and despite their involvement, Hiori was able to send a no-look pass, flying through their press like shooting down an alley, sending the ball towards Isagi, who was rushing towards the goal. Whenever we see Ryo pass, it's usually because he's unmarked or is simply free of a current press. Only rarely has Ryo ever made a pass while being pressed, as he usually loses the ball, or the pass ends up getting intercepted. But by training to copy Hiori's alley cross, Ryo can send a pass while being pressed, and even pass without looking at the person he intends to send the ball to. I think that this is probably the best improvement for Ryo overall because, like our prediction, he's getting a boost in his dribbling because of Jinga, so why not boost his passing a little bit? Now next up, we have the former ace of the U20 team. Let's talk about Shuto Sendo. Now Sendo is a character that, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what weapon that Ryo is going to be able to copy from him. Because looking at Sendo's arsenal and overall style of play and just performances, he's somewhat average. He's got average speed, passing, strength, technique, and shooting. Pretty much all about Sendo is average as a player. Even at Ubers, his style wasn't really anything special. He simply played into their philosophy and strategies. The only thing that I can think about Sendo that he has outside of any other player in BLUELOCK is his clutch saves. In both the U20 game and the match against Bayern München, Sendo's desperate defensive plays saved the game on both sides. This was done when he blocked Bachira's shot as well as Hiori's attempted shot. Aside from that though, I really don't know what weapon Ryo could copy from Sendo that would fit into his arsenal that would still meet the requirement of copying all of the other players on the BLUELOCK Japan team that Ego assigned him. I really don't know. So I guess it's just gonna have to be his clutch saves. But now let's talk about a former teammate of Ryo, Tsurugi Zantetsu. Now Zantetsu is like Chigiri in the sense that a lot of his weapons and abilities are hinged on his speed. Even in the final NEO game against Bayern München, Zantetsu really didn't show much of an expanded arsenal. However, the only weapon I can see from Zantetsu's arsenal that Ryo could potentially copy is his microwave shot. Through episode Nagi, we follow Nagi and Ryo's journey throughout BLUELOCK from their perspective, which allows us to see their interactions with the other teams. In the game against Team W, Ryo helps Zantetsu figure out the trick to maximizing his shooting weapon with his left foot, being to swap the side in which he shoots from. Now, in reality, this weapon is essentially just a 44 Panther snipe on the right side of the pitch. It's also a weapon that would need to be trained with his other foot, since Zantetsu naturally uses his left foot when scoring this kind of goal. Other than this weapon in itself, we really don't have any other weapon in Zantetsu's arsenal that Ryo could realistically copy because, like Karasu, his arsenal really hasn't developed at all. So this is the best one I can think of for the moment. Next up on the list of the Blue Lock Japan members is honestly an underrated pick in my opinion. Let's talk about Raichi Jingo. Raichi is a special case because, like Zantetsu, he didn't show much growth in his development when it relates to expanding his arsenal. Because of this, the only weapon that I could see Ryo copying from Raichi is his protractor man marking. Raichi was able to use his protractor man marking style to help Isagi deal with Snuffy, using his core strength and massive stamina levels to move around the pitch constantly, putting himself in areas that make it difficult for Snuffy to act. Sure, his presses didn't completely stop him, but his efforts allowed for Isagi to predict his actions and intercept his passes with metavision. While Ryo definitely doesn't have the core strength of someone like Tokimitsu or Raichi, he is still physically strong. In the game against Bastion München, Ryo's physical abilities were increased to a significant degree to where he could overpower Isagi with very little difficulty. And with his overall body training to copy the rest of the Blue Lock Japan team, I wouldn't be surprised if Ryo's physique has improved even more. Plus, when looking at his arsenal and our predictions for such, he is honestly lacking a lot of defensive strategies or tactical plays. So by copying Raichi's protractor man marking, he's expanding his arsenal in the defensive area, which is a good thing. But it's time we talk about Mr. Borderliner himself, Kiora Jin. Now, Kiora's arsenal is very different from players like Karasu or Raichi because he has a lot of different weapons that Ryo could choose to copy. His swift dribbling and breakdance ball keeping are two great skills that Ryo could incorporate into his style that would make his ball keeping skills even more advanced. However, with my prediction of him copying Karasu's ball keeping, I really don't see a need for him to take Kiora's breakdancing. And with Ryo having size dribbling plus an eventual incorporation of Jinga, his swift dribbling isn't the most needed either. But what I do think Ryo is going to take from Kiora is the backspin pass that Kiora used to assist Kaiser in the PXG game. When you look at Ryo's available style of passes, he's great when it relates to bullet passes, aerial passes, and even bounding passes. But by using the backspin pass that Kiora used, he can help throw defensive marks off of some players, allowing other players to have a clear chance to score goals. We saw how effective it was with paving the way for Kaiser to score using the Magnus Impact, so having Ryo be able to replicate that play is definitely the best option here. So a general expanding on his playmaking capabilities and arsenal makes sense considering he is now one of the starting midfielders in the game against Nigeria. But finally, we have reached the end of this list, so let's talk about the final character who survived the Neo Egoist League, Nijiro Nanase. Now you can probably tell what weapon that Ryo was going to steal from Nanase because I've been dropping very subtle hints throughout this video. I don't know if you've noticed them, but they're very subtle hints that I've been dropping throughout this video that kind of hint towards what weapon Ryo is going to take from Nanase. Ryo would learn to copy Nanase's ambidexterity. Wow, I know, shocker, right? I know the hiccups that arise from the idea that Ryo could copy Nanase's ambidexterity, but realistically, if he was to copy anything from Nanase, what would he truly copy other than his ambidexterity? Before the New Egoist League, Nanase did not have a single confirmed weapon in his arsenal, with his ambidexterity being his first. While Nanase's ability to equally control both sides of his body is akin to Noel Noah and is therefore a genius-like talent, I do think that Ryo will be able to copy it to a certain degree. Now, of course, he can't copy natural ambidexterity, but we've seen from other characters that semi-ambidexterity can be taught and can be learned. I mean, take Kunigami and Isagi for instance. Kunigami, through training in the wildcard, was able to unlock the ability to fire controlled power shots with his right foot. And Isagi, through a simple 10-day training, was able to create a lefty direct shot weapon that is 40% power to his right. And then 20 days later crafted a weapon that solely works because of his ability to shoot ambidextrously. So to say that Ryo, one of the most dexterous and physically balanced characters in the entire series, cannot be taught to shoot ambidextrously, that's just a wild claim. This weapon would also connect to other skills that require the use of a non-dominant controlled shot to work, such as Zantetsu's microwave shot and Isagi's twin gun volley. Because of that, copying Nanase's ambidexterity weapon is really the only skill that Ryo could devour that would allow for his arsenal to improve exponentially. And with that, those were simply my predictions of Ryo's master copy techniques that he acquired prior to the U20 World Cup beginning. With Ryo now playing as a starter for Japan against Nigeria, I'm expecting to see this weapon on full display in this first game, and I cannot wait to see it. Now, obviously, this video was simply a prediction based on what I believe Ryo would eventually copy from each of these specific players, and if it turns out that any of my predictions were wrong, then nothing I can do about it. But aside from that, I hope you guys did enjoy this video and will continue to enjoy it in the future. I just want to say thank you so much to all the members of my channel who help support me and my content. And if you wish to earn some awesome benefits like they do and even get your name mentioned in the BLUELOCK New World movie, become a member yourself, and help support me moving forward. And just a final reminder to join my Discord server if you're interested in getting any more involved with our amazing community. As for the question of the video though, what predictions do you have for Ryu's master copy ability? Leave me your thoughts down below in the comment section. And like always, thank you all for watching, like and subscribe to see more awesome Blue Lock content just like this.